What's up, everybody? So we're back out in the shop with another Shop Talk Tuesday, and in this episode we are continuing the build process on this hidden tang knife right here that we started last Tuesday. Now in this episode, a few of the things that we need to focus on is getting the blade finished. So we started the blade last week, made sure we got our bevels done, our false edge, profile, everything that we needed to do to set us up for success on the hidden tang, little shoulders that we have right here, all those things. We did that last week. Now on this week we need to focus on getting the heat treat done. So we've got to go through and normalize it, heat treat it, get that part done, and then we've got to focus on hand sanding everything, because I want to have the actual blade that includes the ricasso, the bevels, all that stuff. I want to have it finished before we actually start matching the handle up to it. Now the whole point behind that is, with this being a hidden tang, is I can do all of that stuff, get everything fully done, and then just start focusing on the handle and all that stuff, because everything is separate. You know, it's all done separate. We get the blade all done, and then we can go ahead, start working on our guard, get that kind of done. Then we can start working on our handle, get that all done, and then they all assemble together in their finished parts. Now, of course, there will still be some profiling and stuff like that done on the handle once I get it all put together, but I'm going to do a lot of the profiling off the blade without it being glued together, that's what I should say. So it'll probably only be pinned into place, but it won't be fully glued, so that I can actually take it apart, do a little bit of sanding, and then get it put back together. So there's a little bit of processes that you can do separately and independent from each other, and we're going to focus on those. Now, again, what I really need to focus on is getting the blade finished, and then start trying to work on the guard and a couple other things. So that's what we're going to work on in this one. We'll see what we get done. Guys, let's go ahead. Let's jump into this. Let's get this thing normalized, heat treated, so we can start hand sanding it. Let's get it. Alright, we got our hardness files here. So we're going to try a 60 first. Okay, 60 definitely skates. We're going to try a 65 right here, little 65 one. .65 skates. So now we're going to go ahead and temper this. So what we're going to do is we're going to temper in the oven for 400 degrees for 2 hours times 2. So it's going to be a total of 4 hours. We're just going to let it go for the first 2 hours, let it cool down to room temperature, put it back in the oven, bring it back up to 400 degrees, and that should bring that hardness down a little bit. I'm shooting for between a 58 and 60 HRC, and that should get us where we need to be with this. Remember, this is 1084, so it's not a super complicated steel to work with. Heat treating is very simple. There you go. Let's go ahead, get this in the oven. So y'all seen me do a lot of different hand sanding on different blades. So there's not really going to be much new here, except for the fact that the process that I'm going to be doing is going to be a little bit different. So for this one, I want to go ahead and sand the ricasso in the flat area first, and then we're going to sand the false edge, and then we're going to sand the actual main bevels. And the whole reason behind that is, as you start removing material in different areas, it starts throwing off your lines just a little bit, because we're not going to be removing a ton of material, but we will be removing some. So as we start sanding this area down, it lowers the plunge line area. So the whole point behind that is, with the plunge line area, it comes up and swoops back at an angle. So as you sand down, that line comes a little bit further forward. Same thing for the line where it transitions from the flats into the bevels. That line starts coming a little bit further down. And then when we start sanding here, it starts going a little bit further up. That type of deal. So for all of these, we want them to work exactly how we ground them. So we made everything flat. We do this first with hand sanding. Then we ground in our false edge. So we're going to sand our false edge, so that whatever it does, whatever this area does to the main bevels and whatever this area does to the main bevels will basically get corrected when we come back in here and we start sanding the main bevels, and that slightly brings everything back up into place. So ricasso flat area, false edge, and then your primary bevels. The whole point behind that is so that each thing can counteract each other and make sure that it lines back up to where you want it when it's all said and done. Now we're going to start with 220 grit on all of them. Then we're going to go up to 320 or 400 grit on all of them. And then we're going to go 500 grit. And we might stop at 500 grit. I do have 600 over here just in case I want to mess with it. But because this is getting acid etched and stone washed, we only really have to go up to about 500-600 grit. Anything above that is just going to get purely erased in the actual acid etching and stone washing. So there you go. We're going to go ahead and use both a hard backer and a slightly soft, spongy / hard backer right here. Yellow side is soft, black side is hard. Now, one of the things that I need to mention while we're doing this is I'm going to be going at a few different angles during this process. So as we progress up through the sanding grits, we're going to be going different directions. So on one, I might be going at an angle a little bit, and then on the next sandpaper, I might be going straight, and then at an angle, then straight, and at an angle as we go up through the different sandpapers, so that we can actually get rid of each grinding line or sanding line as we're going through. If all of our grinding lines are going this way and we keep sanding them that way, we're not really going to remove everything. We want to go against that set of lines. If we're ground this way, the first sanding is going to go this way, and then we might sand this way, and then we might sand this way. But that way we can again get rid of lines as we progress up. So we got everything sanded, maker's mark on there. Right now we're just letting it etch before we go ahead and clean this off and then stone wash it. I'm basically going to leave it in here for about 3 minutes, then clean it off, then go back in for about 3 minutes, then clean it off and stone wash. So now that we got that all acid etched, I know that it looks really good like that, but we're still going to stone wash it just because that's what I want to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our little tumbler that we have here. This is just a bunch of aquarium style rocks with some WD-40 in there. I'm going to put a little bit more on the blade area. So make sure it's all covered. And then we close it up and start shaking it. I will tell you this, the trick to doing this by hand is not to just go all crazy. You want to kind of shake it in ways that's going to make it to where all of those rocks hit the blade at different angles, so you don't end up with a bunch of lines going this way or this way. You want those lines, the stone washing, to go everywhere on it and not look uniform. Now we did this for maybe about a minute and a half. And that's the result of that. Remember whenever I said it would make all of the areas stand out? Everywhere where the bevels meet, all that's all super crisp. Plunge lines makes everything stand out and super crisp whenever you do that acid etch and stone wash. So now that this part is done, we're going to go ahead, tape this up, and then start working on the handle. So luckily for me, I have plenty of room to play with for where everything's going to meet up to the actual blade itself. So what I ended up doing was I just did a rough marking for where the tang is going to land on here. So just roughly marked it out, because like I said, I've got plenty of material that I can remove from the bottom and the top to be able to still do my guard and get everything lined up how I want it, and still be able to put a pin back here where I'm going to end up doing an 1/8 inch pin through this area right there to pin everything together. Even though I am epoxy and everything, I still want a mechanical bond having that pin there. So pretty much all I got to do now is get that marked, mark it on the front, which is what I did there. Doesn't have to be super precise. You want it to be pretty precise, but it doesn't have to be insane. The big thing is, of course, making sure, if you have way less material than I do, to really get after the measuring. For me, again, I've got a lot of material to where I can adjust a little bit if I need to go 1/16 of an inch or something like that. And then all I wanted to make sure of is that I have my nice center line, and I drew a line all the way down the center, lined everything up, and brought that down the face, so I know that this is actually going to be perfect for whenever I put the tang in there, and everything's going to line up for the most part where it needs to. Of course, I can adjust a few things during the shaping process, but then I went ahead, marked where the tang is going to be on the guard, just kind of roughly put those where they needed to be here. I've got them actually smaller, so narrower than how wide the tang is right now. I'm just going to go ahead and mark a center line so I know exactly where to drill through there, and then I'm going to punch that, drill it through, and then I'll gradually open the hole with files until it fits this nice and snug. So I'm going to make it a little bit narrow and a little bit not near as tall, and then open it up as we start matching everything together. So pretty much what I got to do is sit here and file this out until the tang fits in there. Once the tang fits in there, we can get it all the way up to here. I'm probably going to have to open it up just a little bit, top and bottom, to fit this. The good thing is, I mean, I can open it all the way up to up here if I wanted to, because it's going to be completely hidden behind that whole ledge that goes around the tang. Gives me a little bit of leeway when it comes to matching things up. So at this point, we filed it enough to be able to go all the way up to that little area that I have here where it opens up, where I rounded these corners to make sure we didn't have any weak spots. So now all I've got to do is take and file a little bit on the top and the bottom, and we will go all the way in. Alright guys, let's go ahead and wrap this Shop Talk Tuesday up here with some of that. I mean, again, I love the way it looks whenever you put a good acid etch and stonewash on a blade that has multiple bevels, because it makes everything stand out, because the way the light hits different pieces just makes all those cool little bevels and almost like facets just really stand out. Now, for some people, you might be thinking, why an acid etch and stonewash on a knife that's going to have something like that as a guard, a Mokamegane style guard? Part of that is because this color of that copper is going to stand out a ton against this, and then it's going to balance well because we're going to have that dark antler piece as the back of the handle, that nice green stabilized and dyed burl, then this as the transition point back into dark. And it is going to be absolutely awesome. I kind of have a little bit of a shape drawn on there that I'm going to go with, but it matches up perfect on there. Can't really ask for better than that. And a lot of that, again, is due to the way that I did this, to where it kind of bevels in, and that little lip that you see right there. So when we put that together, everything matches up nicely. So that's pretty much the end of this one, guys. In the next episode, our goal is to go ahead, get that handle attached to this, hopefully go ahead and get everything profiled and all that stuff, and maybe go ahead and wrap this up. We'll see how it goes. I think we'll be able to do it, but we'll see where we get to. Guys, thank y'all for coming by. If y'all would, give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Y'all have an amazing day. Y'all stay safe out there. I'll catch y'all next time.